I still remember the exact moment that little white envelope ruined my coffee. It was 8:12 a.m. I know, because I checked my phone when I stepped outside. The air smelled like fresh-cut grass and someone's overburnt toast. I was in slippers, half awake, just doing what I always did, grabbing the mail before Scout, my 5-year-old mutt, decided to race the neighborhood squirrels and turn the front yard into a construction zone of dug-up flower beds. The envelope was tucked between a coupon flyer and a gas bill. It had the HOA's return address in bold serif font, like it was something from a courthouse. You know, the type all uppercase, no soul. I stood in the driveway flipping through junk, balancing my coffee mug, not expecting anything out of the ordinary, and then I saw it. Notice a violation, lot number 34, my lot, my house. I opened it right there. Envelope trembling between fingers, not from fear, just the kind of frustration that boils right under your skin when you know it's going to be some ridiculous nonsense before you even read it. It didn't disappoint. Dear homeowner, it has come to our attention that your residence is currently in violation of Community Aesthetic Code 4.7b, which requires all front-facing windows to be equipped with standard neutral window treatments, for example, curtains, blinds, for purposes of uniformity and privacy. As your living room windows currently lack appropriate coverings, this presents a disruption to the neighborhood standard and exposes interior visuals to the public right-of-way. What? I blinked. Read it. Again, then once more, just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. They were fining me for not having curtains. I looked up at my own house like it was suddenly a stranger. The windows were big, floor to ceiling, but that's why I bought the place. Natural light. The way the morning sun poured through that glass was something out of a dream. You could stand in that room, coffee in hand, and feel like the world hadn't collapsed into rules and email chains yet. But now, it was a violation. Because I didn't have curtains. I stood there, half laughing, half incredulous, rereading the letter. Like it might change. Like maybe I'd missed the part where they accidentally sent me a copy meant for someone else. Some guy with a flashing strobe light in his window, or mannequins, doing yoga poses or whatever, actually warrants a fine. Nope. It was real, Scout. Trotted over, tail wagging, mouth open in that dumb dog smile he always had, and I swear, even he looked confused. What? Like, dude, are we seriously in trouble for sunlight? Hey, that was the beginning, and I should have seen it for what it really was. The first warning shot from Karen, I didn't know her name yet. Not officially. But everyone had a Karen on their HOA board, right? It's the kind of woman who clutches her clipboard like it's a holy relic and wields community codes like a medieval sword. It's the type who introduces herself by title before name. Hi, I'm Karen, head of HOA Aesthetic Compliance. You know the one? But at that moment, I still thought this was just a misunderstanding. It's an automated notice. Something I could clear up with a simple call. God, I was naive. That afternoon, I called the HOA number. Took 28 minutes on hold. I was bounced from one extension to another before landing on a woman named Connie, who sounded exactly how you'd expect: cheerful, robotic, and armed with the personality of dry toast. Hi, Mr. Brooks, she chirped. Thank you for reaching out regarding your curtain violation. Curtain violation, I repeated, almost choking on the phrase. Is that an actual term? Well, according to Code 4.7b, all front-facing, yeah, I read the letter. I cut in. What I'm asking is there someone I can talk to in person about this? Because it sounds absolutely ridiculous. Silence. Then a smile I couldn't see but definitely heard. That would be our board liaison, she said. You can speak with her at the next HOA walkthrough. She'll be on site tomorrow at 9 a.m. Look for the red blazer. Then it felt like a warning. 9 a.m. sharp the next morning, I was out front. Coffee in hand, Scout beside me. I didn't have to wait long. A small group came marching down the street with clipboards in hand, like soldiers on a code enforcement crusade, and leading them, unmistakably, was Karen, mid-50s. Platinum blonde bob, sunglasses too big for her face. Red blazer buttoned to her throat like she was prepping for a televised debate. She walked with the kind of authority that only came from years of scolding grocery clerks and requesting to speak to managers. I stepped off my porch with a smile that said civil, but not submissive. "Excuse me, ma'am," her eyes flicked up. I could feel the audit begin with her gaze. "Are you the homeowner at Lot 34? She asked. I nodded. "That's me. Wanted to talk to someone about this curtain thing?" She tapped something on her clipboard. "It's not a thing, Mr. Brooks. It's a violation." I raised an eyebrow. "You do realize my windows don't even face directly into anyone else's house, right?" She looked past me toward the living room, which was perfectly clean, mind you. Couch, bookshelves. Not a scandalous thing in sight. "I could see your ceiling fan rotating from the sidewalk," she said, as if describing an act of public indecency. I didn't realize ceiling fans were offensive. She didn't laugh. "I'm just asking for consistency," I continued. "I've seen at least 4 houses on this street with the exact same open window look." Her eyes narrowed. "Those homes have been granted exemptions due to elevation and corner lot orientation. Yours is mid-block, forward-facing. Translation: you're not special. You don't get a pass." I could feel Scout shift beside me, picking up on my mood. "So what exactly do you want me to do?" I asked. "Because this feels personal." She bristled. "It's not personal. It's procedural." That's when I saw it, that flicker, a tiny smirk tugging the edge of her lip. It was personal. I was the only person on the street who had waved at her once, and never again. The only one who didn't show up at the last 3 HOA meetings. The only one who didn't cower at the sight of a clipboard, and now she had something to hold over me after they walked away. I stood there for a while, just me and Scout, and the sunlight pouring through the same windows that now had a target on them, and that's when it hit me. This wasn't about curtains. This was about control. And if Karen wanted a war over windows, she had just picked the wrong house. The thing about living in a neighborhood is that you assume certain rules are just common sense. Don't park in front of someone's driveway. Pick up after your dog. Maybe mow your lawn once in a while. But nowhere in the unwritten rule book of human decency did it ever say, "Thou shalt not let sunlight into thine living room." And yet, that's exactly where I found myself. The day after my sidewalk showdown with Karen, I decided to ignore the warning letter, not out of arrogance, but because in my gut, I believed it wasn't a real rule, or at least not one being enforced with any consistency. I even Googled the HOA's code. Nothing definitive. Encouraged uniformity and standard window treatments were the phrases they used, vague enough to mean whatever Karen wanted them to. But I wasn't in the mood to play the scared homeowner, so I left my windows open, wide open. The morning light pour in just like it always had, and that's when it started. First, the slow drive dash BYS at exactly 7:35 a.m. the next day when Scout and I were in the kitchen. He eating his food, me nursing my 3rd cup of coffee. I noticed a silver SUV crawling past the house, not just driving slowly, crawling like someone was looking for something. I peeked through the corner of the front window, lifting the edge of the blinds like a spy in a Cold War movie. And there she was, Karen, sunglasses on, lips pursed, one hand gripping the steering wheel, the other holding her phone angled just enough toward my house that I could tell she was either taking a picture or, God help us, filming. I couldn't help but laugh. Scout barked once, and I swear even he was offended. She pulled away without stopping. No honk, no wave. Just rolled on to the next block like nothing happened. But from that moment on, the war was officially on. Over the next few days, it escalated subtly at first. Little things. A notice placed directly on my door, not mailed, citing continued non-compliance. That was weird because no other house on the street had gotten a door tag for anything in months. Then a garbage can warning. Apparently mine had been out past the authorized return window by 18 minutes. 18. I checked the timestamp. This wasn't enforcement. This was harassment. And what made it worse? I didn't even mind installing curtains. I just hated the idea that she could control when, how, and why I did something in my own house based on some half-imagined offense. So, I did what any reasonable man would do. I left my windows even more open. That weekend, I had a few friends over. Just a small hangout, board games, pizza, a couple drinks, nothing rowdy. We wrapped up around 10 p.m. Everyone was gone by 10:30. The noise level never broke a whisper past the front yard. But guess what showed up on Monday? Another letter. This time it read, "Multiple neighbors have expressed concern regarding late-night visibility into your living room. While no specific incident was reported, it is advised that you take action to prevent any further disruption to the aesthetic cohesion of our neighborhood. Your home remains under review." Under review? What the hell was this? A Netflix pitch. I decided to walk the neighborhood the next morning just to see what everyone else's windows look like. You know what I saw? At least 4 houses with? The exact same setup I had. Open windows, no curtains, maybe a plant or bookshelf in view. One guy even had fluorescent purple LEDs glowing through his blinds like a rave was about to start. Nobody was bothering him. And that's when I started hearing the whispers. It started with Mrs. Delaney. She's the sweet old lady 3 doors down, with 6 cats and more lawn gnomes than should be legally allowed. As I passed her fence, she waved me over. "I heard about the curtain thing," she said, shaking her head. "Oh yeah," I asked, trying to sound casual. She looked around as if someone might be listening, then leaned in slightly. "Karen's always had a thing." "About your house? My house?" "Well, you know, the big windows. The fact that you're single. She says it doesn't look private enough for our standards." I nearly choked. Wait, she's going around talking about how my house looks. What? Too single? Mrs. Delaney just shrugged. She watches people. Not the first. That last part stuck with me. That evening, I installed a motion-activated security camera facing the front of my property. Not because I thought Karen would trespass, she was too proper for that, but because I wanted proof. If she was filming, walking up to my windows, peering in, I wanted it on tape. I angled the camera just above the living room frame. It's barely noticeable. 2 nights later, it paid off. There she was, on camera at 6:52 p.m., walking her tiny, poodle-like creature she calls a therapy dog. She stopped across from my driveway, pretended to fiddle with the leash. Then, clear as daylight, pulled out her phone and filmed my house. Zoomed in, swept. Left to right, stayed for a full 45 seconds. My living room light was on. Nothing inappropriate. It's nothing scandalous. It's just me sitting on the couch watching TV, with Scout snoring beside me, and that's what she needed to document. I printed a still image of the footage, put it in a plastic sleeve the next morning. I walked to the HOA office and handed it to the receptionist. "Please include this in my file," I said. She didn't ask questions. Didn't even look surprised. I left before she could, that weekend. I received yet another letter, but this time it wasn't from the HOA. It was slid under my door. "No return address." Typed in Times New Roman. Just 2 sentences. "You're not the only one she watches. She does this to people she doesn't like. The curtain rule is just her favorite weapon." And that's when I knew. This was bigger than me. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was afraid. Not because I thought Karen was going to show up at my doorstep like some kind of suburban boogeyman. No, it was something deeper, something more unsettling. It was the thought that maybe, just maybe, I hadn't been paranoid after all. You see? When you live in a community where houses are stacked just close enough to smell each other's breakfast, you assume there's an unspoken agreement. We all mind our own business. You wave, you nod. You pretend not to notice each other's lives through the blinds and move on. But when someone violates that, it's a social contract. When someone weaponizes their gaze, it does something to you. You start to wonder, how long has this been going on? How long had Karen been watching me? The anonymous letter that showed up under my door sat on my coffee table for hours. 2 lines of plain black text on a sheet of cheap printer paper, but it hit harder than anything I'd received so far. "You're not the only one she watches. She does this to people she doesn't like. The curtain rule is just her favorite weapon." It wasn't signed. No fingerprints. Nothing traceable. But whoever wrote it had clearly seen the game being played from the inside. So I did what anyone with a half-functioning moral compass and a slightly overactive sense of justice would do. I started asking questions the next morning. I took Scout for a walk, not just for his sake, but because I needed to test the water. I figured a casual stroll, a wave or two, maybe someone would say something. I didn't even have to bait the hook. By the time we made it halfway around the cul-de-sac, two neighbors stopped me. First was Ben, the guy across the street with the loud truck and the mysteriously reappearing garden gnomes. I saw her again, he muttered, eyes darting toward the HOA building down the road. Filming your windows? I think she filmed mine too a few weeks ago, said I had unapproved. Patio furniture. It's just a bench, man. Then came Lucia, a single mother who lived 2 doors down from me. She pulled her kid inside before stepping closer. She came to my house 3 months ago, she said quietly, and told me my curtains were too dark. That they created visual heaviness on the street. What does that even mean? I didn't. No, neither did she. But both of them shared the same exhausted look, like people who had grown used to being watched, judged, measured by invisible standards. Like people who had given up fighting back. That's when it hit me. Karen wasn't enforcing order. She was building a kingdom, and she ruled it from behind a clipboard. That night, I reviewed the footage from my camera again. Karen's face, her sunglasses, its smug, surveying look. And then I did something petty. I printed a second copy of that still image and posted it. On the neighborhood bulletin board, the one next to the mailboxes where HOA announcements usually went. No caption. No explanation. Just the image, Karen. Phone out. Staring straight into someone's home? Let people draw their own conclusions, and they did. The next morning, the image was gone, ripped clean off. But not before it made its rounds. Because by noon, my inbox had 3 anonymous messages. The first was from a guy named M. No last name. Said he used to live 2 streets over. Said he moved because Karen made it unbearable. The second came with a PDF attachment of an old violation letter dated 2 years ago, citing visible exercise equipment through the dining room window. Apparently Karen thought a Peloton bike was distracting, but the third message? That one changed everything. It came from a former HOA assistant, a woman named Natalie. Her email was short, but heavy. I worked under Karen for 8 months before I quit. Still live nearby, but I stay quiet because she has a long memory. Documents everything, not just what people do wrong, but when they resist. She keeps files. Real ones, with photos. Some of them are from years ago. I saw your address on her desk in the repeat known compliance folder. Do you want to talk? I'll meet you somewhere off property. I read that email 3 times, then sat back and let the weight of it settle in. This wasn't just a petty woman with a clipboard. This was surveillance, targeting a weirdly obsessive game of power cloaked in HOA regulations. And she'd been doing it for years. That weekend, I met Natalie at a coffee shop in the next town over. It's nothing fancy, just one of those places with mismatched mugs and handwritten chalkboard menus. She wore a hoodie, no makeup, and sunglasses inside, like she still expected Karen to show up behind her. She's obsessed with uniformity, she said, stirring her tea without looking at me. But it's not about design. It's about control, the curtains thing. That's her test. If you comply, you're on her safe list. If you resist, she escalates. I leaned forward. Escalates how? Natalie sighed. Noise complaints, trash violations, lawn height, anything. She doesn't even need proof, just the appearance of a pattern. And once you're marked, the fines start. I asked her about the repeat known compliance folder. She nodded. It's real. It's in her home office. Paper files. Handwritten notes. And she's got pictures. Hundreds. Some are from years ago. People moving in, walking dogs, kids playing too close to the sidewalk. Kids, I said, eyebrows raised. She says it's about safety, Natalie replied. But it's really about territory. That word hit like a cold slap, territory, like she was guarding the neighborhood as if it were her personal castle. I asked Natalie why she quit. I told her it was unethical, she said. She said if I didn't like it, I didn't belong in her community. Then she leaned closer. I think you're the first one she couldn't intimidate. That scares her. By the time I got home, I'd made a decision. I wasn't just going to keep fighting this in silence. I was going to shine a light. Because if Karen wanted darkness behind every curtain in the neighborhood, then maybe, just maybe, she was. Afraid of what people might see in the light, and she had no idea. I was just getting started. You'd think, with everything going on, the surveillance, the anonymous notes, the whispered warnings, I'd be numb to surprises by now. But the human brain has this funny way of clinging to logic, even in the face of pettiness, somewhere. Deep down, I still believe the HOA had rules. Stupid rules, sure, but rules nonetheless. And that belief, that fragile, naive hope, it shattered the second I walked past the mailbox pavilion that Monday morning. I wasn't looking for anything, just out walking Scout the way we always did. He was sniffing every blade of grass, like it was a message from God, and I was half awake, hoping caffeine would magically appear in my bloodstream. Then I saw it. Pinned to the corkboard beneath the HOA meeting notice, a full-color flyer, laminated, bolded in all caps at the top. Community, ALERT, non-compliant homes, and there. In a list beneath a paragraph about visual disorder and preserving harmony was my address. Lot number 34. My name, spelled out in red ink. No context, no explanation, just a public shaming. On display for every male fetching, dog walking, package grabbing neighbor to see. I stood there for a moment, not moving, just staring. Scout sat down at my feet, sensing something had shifted. My ears were hot, my stomach twisted. That kind of burn you feel, not when you're caught, but when someone tries to humiliate you on purpose. Beneath my name were 3 bullet points. Visible interior through front windows failure to comply with 4.7b standardized window coverings. Community disruption report under review disruption. That word again, Karen loved it. Used it like a knife with a clean blade. And there it was, printed for the entire block to digest over their morning espresso. I didn't take the flyer down. Not because I wanted it there, but because I needed people to see it, let it sit in the sun and wrinkle in the humidity, let it burn itself into memory, because this performative punishment was her next move, and she thought it would break me. That afternoon, I got 3 texts all from neighbors, all saying the same thing. Saw the list. That's messed up. One offered to bring beer, another Lucia offered a curtain rod. I thanked them, politely declined both, and stood at my living room window as the sun dipped down behind the rooftop's curtains. Still none. But now the window had taken on new energy. It was no longer just glass. It was a symbol, and I was going to defend it. The next morning, I called a local law firm, small place, family-owned. I wasn't suing anyone yet, but I wanted to know how far she could go. Where did the HOA's power stop? What rights did I have as a homeowner? The receptionist was kind, the lawyer. Even kinder, his name was Eli Ramirez. He spoke like a man who had seen far worse than nosy neighbors. She's out of line, he said after a few minutes of explanation. They're allowed to enforce the CC&Rs, sure, but public shaming without due process. That's not policy. That's targeted harassment. He asked for a copy of the list. I sent it. He asked for the curtain clause in the HOA's guidelines. I scanned it, vague at best, and then he asked me the question that hit like a sucker punch. Has she ever entered your property? I blinked. No, not that I know of, but she's filming you, watching you, naming you publicly. Yeah, he paused. That's a pattern. It may not be illegal yet, but it's something we can use. That night I wrote an email, shortblunt.com, *Dear HOA. I received the flyer posted near the mailboxes. I have not been notified of any due process, hearing, or opportunity to appeal before my name and address were publicly posted. This constitutes targeted harassment and defamation. Please remove my information from public display immediately, and provide a written explanation of any formal complaints against my property. Failure to do so will result in legal action. Respectfully, David Brooks, lot number 34 *. I didn't expect a response, but I got one. Not from the board. from Karen. She emailed me at 11:47 p.m. Subject line: clarification re community expectations body asterisk Mr. Brooks. It's unfortunate that you continue to view reasonable requests as personal attacks. As a representative of the community, my responsibility is to maintain standards, even when they are inconvenient to a few. Your home remains the only property on your street in known compliance with Aesthetic Code 4.7b, while your views on privacy are noted. They do not override agreed-upon guidelines. The list will remain posted until the issue is resolved. Asterisk Karen M., head of Aesthetic Enforcement Meadowgate Estates. She signed her name like a war general, and that was the moment. I realized this wasn't about me anymore. It was about everyone who had been dragged into line, quietly, without protest. Everyone who had been fined for chairs or flags or sidewalk chalk. Everyone who had swallowed the rules just to keep the peace. But peace wasn't what Karen wanted. She wanted obedience. And I had no intention of giving it to her. I didn't install curtains. I didn't pull my blinds. Instead, I ordered something else, something she wouldn't see coming. It would take a few days to arrive, but when it did, Corinne was going to see herself in a whole new light, literally, because if she wanted a window war, then I was going to give her one. It arrived in a long, unmarked cardboard box. No fancy branding, no dramatic labeling. Just a plain shipping label, a bunch of packing paper, and a roll of high-grade one-way mirror window tint wrapped in plastic like some secret weapon you order off the dark web. I didn't tell anyone I bought it, not even my neighbors, because this wasn't just about blocking out sunlight anymore. It was about flipping the lens. I wanted Karen and anyone else peering in to see exactly what they'd been doing for weeks, staring, inspecting, judging. I wasn't hiding anything. I was holding up a mirror. Installation took 5 hours and about 3 podcasts worth of noise in the background to distract me from the meticulous, bubble-free alignment it required. I started with the largest living room windows, the ones that had sparked this whole ridiculous drama in the first plays, the ones Karen had filmed, the ones Scout liked to lay beside in the mornings like a sunbathing lion. It was strange how silent it felt, just me, alone with the glass, carefully peeling and smoothing each panel of tint until the world outside became a haze while my reflection sharpened in reverse. From inside, it looked the same. Still bright, still beautiful, but from the sidewalk, it looked like a wall of silver. Not dark, not gloomy, just impenetrable. By the time I finished, the house looked futuristic. Not tacky, not overly obvious. It's just clean, sharp, and oddly powerful. The windows reflected the sky, the clouds, the trees, and anyone who dared to stop and gawk. And the next morning, that's exactly what Karen did. She didn't even try to be subtle. Same SUV, same slow roll, except this time, she didn't drive past. She stopped, right in front of my mailbox, put the car in park, got out, and just stood there, looking at her own reflection at first. She squinted, tilted her head, probably trying to see inside. But there was nothing to see, just her own image, blown wide across the entire front of my house like a fun house, mirror from suburban hell. She stepped closer, pulled out her phone again, but this time she didn't record. She just stood there, staring at herself. And for a moment, I swear to you, she looked unsettled, like she had expected resistance. But not this. Later that afternoon, I got a knock at the door. I opened it cautiously, Scout already by my side. It was Ben, the guy across the street. "Man," he said, grinning, "what is that window thing you put up?" I smiled. "It just tint, like the kind they use on office buildings." He chuckled. Karen looked like she saw a ghost. My wife and I were watching through the kitchen blinds. I didn't say anything at first. Just let that silence hang. Then I asked, "Ever thought about doing the same?" He looked around, lowered his voice. "You think it's allowed?" I shrugged. No one said it wasn't. Once like that, an idea started to spread. The next few days were interesting. I didn't hear anything directly from Karen, but the HOA newsletter arrived in my inbox with a brand new section titled Reflective Materials and Exterior Modifications. A reminder subtle. Classic Karen. Didn't mention me by name, not this time, but the warning was clear. It cautioned homeowners about materials that alter the outward aesthetic harmony. It included a handy and completely unverified footnote about light pollution caused by mirrored surfaces. Light pollution? Really? Meanwhile, my mirror? Tint had become the talk of the Cul-D-Sac. Ben mentioned ordering some himself. Lucia asked where. I bought it. Even Mrs. Delaney, yes, Cat Lady Lawn, Gnome Queen, told me she was intrigued. I never liked people looking in at my book collection anyway, she whispered. Karen's control, that invisible leash she used to keep everyone in line, was slipping. But then came the next move. A new violation letter slipped under my door, with a photo of my house at sunrise. The reflection of sunlight was causing glare and presenting a hazard to neighboring properties. It was taken from across the street, from a ridiculous angle, like someone was trying to stage a crime scene for a CSI episode titled The Case of the Blinding Curtainless Man. This time, I didn't even respond. I just sent it straight to Eli, my lawyer, and then printed it, put it in a sleeve, and taped it to the inside of my front window, right behind the mirror tint. A little souvenir for Karen to read in reverse. Next time she tried to inspect the perimeter, but perhaps the most unexpected thing happened the following weekend. A kid, maybe 12 years old, from 3 houses down, rode his bike past and stopped. I was out watering the grass, and he pointed. At the house. That's so cool, he said. My mom said your house looks like a robot. I laughed. You think that's a good thing? He nodded. It's like nobody can mess with you. Maybe that's what this was really about. Not power, not privacy. Just sending a message. I see you seeing me. I'm not afraid of it anymore. If there's one thing I've learned about people like Karen, it's this. When you take away their control, they don't stop. They escalate. And boy, did she escalate? It started with the trash bins. On a random Tuesday morning, I received a bright orange notice on my garage door stating that I had left my trash receptacle visible from the street for longer than the HOA code allowed. The time stamp. 7:06 a.m. Pickup had happened 5 minutes earlier. Scout hadn't even finished his breakfast. That alone would have been laughable. But it didn't stop there. The next day, improper lawn edge maintenance. I kid you not. Lawn edge. Not the lawn itself, not the height, not the color. The edge. Apparently the transition from grass to sidewalk lacked definition. The day after that, obstructive wind chime interference. Yes, my wind chime, a small bamboo one, gifted to me by my aunt years ago, was causing continuous disturbance to adjacent properties due to inconsistent tonal frequency. I read that line 3 times. Still don't know what it means, Scout. Just wagged his tail like he was proud of it. I called Eli again, trying not to sound like I was spiraling. He was calm, reassuring the way a good lawyer should be. This is retaliation, he said flatly. She's trying to paper cut you into compliance. Can I fight it? He paused. Yes, but it'll take evidence, documentation, a pattern. I hung up, took a deep breath, and got to work. Because if Karen wanted a paperwork war, I'd give her one. Over the next 10 days, I documented everything, every notice, every temp, every angle from my security camera that proved compliance, or showed her or another board member snooping around. I bought a little receipt folder from the dollar store and labeled it The Book of Karen. Inside, I filed photos of my trash bins with time-stamped footage showing I brought them in within 10 minutes of pickup. Screenshots of weather data proving there was no wind during the wind chime disturbance. Comparisons of lawn edging with 3 neighboring homes, all of whom were more ragged than mine, but had never been cited. It was obsessive, yes, but also it's kind of exhilarating. Because with every documented lie, every exaggerated complaint, every bizarre infraction, I was building a case. Not just against the notices, but against her entire operation. And it wasn't just me anymore, Lucia. Texted me a photo of a violation she got for having non-uniform seasonal decor. Her crime. A fall-themed wreath on her front door. Ben got cited for unregistered lawn art. The gnome, naturally. Even Mrs. Delaney. Sweet. Cat-loving Mrs. Delaney received a warning about unapproved outdoor animal structures. Her bird feeder, a damn bird feeder. I started to see it clearly then. What? Karen was really doing. She wasn't just punishing me for the mirror tint. She was sending a message to everyone else. Fall in line, or this is what happens. But here's the thing about pressure. Apply enough of it, and eventually people snap. Only. We weren't snapping. We were talking, and that scared her more than anything. It started with a group chat. Lucia added me. Then Ben. Then 3 other neighbors, all of whom had mysteriously ended up on the HOA's complaint radar in the last 6 months. We called it Eyes on Karen. Each day, someone new posted a photo, a complaint, a tip. One guy. Marco. From the back, cul-de-sac had drone footage showing Karen walking into his yard and photographing his shed from behind his bushes. That footage. Eli loved it. This is gold, he said. Shows trespassing, harassment, and proves a pattern. We started building a folder, digitally. Now this time, dozens of files, photos, messages, audio clips, and slowly like frost cracking through a windshield. Karen's grip began to fracture. Then came the letter. A formal one. Typed, signed, and delivered not by Karen but by the HOA board's secretary. It read, Dear homeowner, we have been made aware of recent concerns regarding enforcement inconsistencies and the frequency of violation notices. While we strive to maintain high standards for all residents, we recognize that clarity, fairness, and transparency are essential to maintaining community trust. Effective immediately, all further citations will be reviewed by an independent committee. Thank you for your patience and continued efforts to keep Meadowgate a welcoming place for all. Translation: Karen had been sidelined, not fired, not removed, but her ability to fire off warnings like HOA confetti. Oh, gone. She didn't take it well. The next morning, she was at it again, standing on the corner with a clipboard, sunglasses on, scanning the street like a soldier, surveying a war zone. But the difference was clear. People weren't avoiding her anymore. They were watching her back. One guy waved at her with a little too much sarcasm. Someone honked a long, mocking honk. I just stood. In my doorway, sipping coffee through a smile, Scout barked once, almost like he was laughing too. The problem with losing power, real power, is that people like Karen don't take it lying down. They don't retreat quietly. They rewrite the rules, and sure enough, exactly 1 week after her citation privileges were suspended, the HOA issued an urgent bulletin titled, Special Meeting to Review Proposed Aesthetic Guidelines Update, Reflective Surfaces and Visual Obstructions, and there it was in plain, bureaucratic English, a proposed ban on any reflective material. Affixed to exterior-facing windows which may cause glare, distort street cohesion, or visually mirror public-facing walkways. No mention of me by name, of course. But everyone knew this was the Mirror Tint Amendment. The meeting was scheduled for Saturday afternoon. In the clubhouse near the main entrance, the one with the fake fireplace and those weird water jugs, that always tasted like mint for some reason. Karen was already there when I arrived, seated at the long table with 2 other board members. Pen in hand, blazer pressed, glasses perched low on her nose like a courtroom judge in a crime drama. And the turnout? Let's just say she wasn't ready for that. Nearly 30 people showed up, which, in HOA terms, is a rebellion. They didn't come for free muffins. They came with questions, with notes. With screenshots, Lucia brought a folder. Ben brought his laptop. Marco. The drone guy brought his iPad and played the video of Karen, trespassing on a loop. Karen pretended not to look, but her hand started tapping. That nervous twitch she got when things slipped out of her grip. The board president, tired man named Charles, who mostly looked like he wanted to retire and escape to a fishing village, opened the floor, and I was the first to speak. I didn't yell, didn't rant, didn't throw around accusations. I just stood there and told the story, start to finish, the notices, the public shaming, flyer, the camera footage, the retaliation, and finally, the mirror tint, what it was, wasn't, and why it mattered. Look, I said, this isn't about tint. It's not about curtains. It's about being able to live in your home without feeling like someone is always watching, always judging, always pulling out a clipboard every time you mow your lawn slightly crooked. I looked straight at Karen, and let's be honest. If we're more worried about mirrored windows than harassment, then maybe we've lost sight of what community means. Silence. Then someone clapped. Then another, until half the room was applauding. Awkward and loud and beautiful, Karen tried to speak next. But the momentum had shifted. Lucia followed me, then Mrs. Delaney, even quiet Rob from the corner lot. One who never attended anything stood up and described how. Karen once emailed him about his mailbox paint chipping. I was repainting it the next day, he muttered. She didn't even give me time. When the vote finally happened, the proposal failed. 17-6, Aesthetic Guideline 4.7b. Safe for now? Mirror tint, here to stay. Karen gathered her things in silence, and for the first time since all this began, she looked small. Not defeated, not destroyed, just shrinking, like someone who realized her reflection wasn't nearly as powerful as she thought. After the meeting, people stayed, talked, laughed. It felt like community, real community, one that hadn't existed before because we were too scared or too polite to stand up. Ben asked if I'd help him install mirror tint next weekend. Lucia said she might get a dog. Mrs. Delaney hugged me. Later that night I stood outside with Scout as the sun dipped low, casting a golden wash across the front of the house. The mirror tint caught it all, the trees, the sky, the gentle pink clouds. It was beautiful and peaceful. For once, I didn't see Karen for the next 2 days. But when I did, she walked past, didn't wave, didn't glare. She looked at her reflection and looked away. You ever feel that uneasy silence, that kind where? You know, a storm already passed, but something's still hanging in the air. That's what the neighborhood felt like after the vote. Calm to calm. Karen had gone quiet. No more emails, no more flyers, no more clipboard strolls at sunrise. And the HOA board, they were suddenly issuing polite monthly newsletters with zero mentions of aesthetic concerns, but I knew better. You don't just erase years of behavior with one failed vote and a few awkward apologies. People like Karen don't just fade away. They plot, and that's exactly what she had been doing. Behind the scenes, even after we thought we'd won, it started with a call from Natalie. Remember her? The former HOA assistant who quit after seeing how Karen weaponized power like it was a sport? She called me out of the blue, her voice nervous, almost urgent. I think you should see this, she said. I wasn't going to say anything, but after everything that happened, well, I think you deserve to know. We met in the same coffee shop as before. This time she came with a manila envelope in her hands and eyes that said, "This changes everything," inside a USB drive. And on it, a recording. The file was timestamped 3 months ago, the exact week Karen had posted my name and address on the public bulletin board in the audio. Karen was meeting privately with 2 HOA board members, Charles, the tired president, and a third person I didn't recognize by voice. She didn't know she was being recorded. Apparently, Natalie had started keeping voice memos on her phone during those meetings, just in case. Karen, laughing, "Oh, please. He thinks a little mirror tint makes him untouchable. Let him think he won. We'll wait until the next compliance round. Nail him with overlapping violations. They always break if you're patient." A known voice. Isn't that a bit much? Karen, if we let this guy get away with this, they'll all stop listening. This is about order, not about windows. Charles quietly. But we can't just Karen cutting him off. Charles, you gave me that authority. Let me use it. There was a pause. The faint click of her pen. Then her voice again. He doesn't belong here anyway. Not with that dog, that attitude. That kind of person always causes trouble. That line, that final ugly loaded line, it said. More than all the warning letters combined, and the tone, Venom, not regulation, not community concern, just pure, unfiltered contempt. I sat there, gripping the earbuds, heart pounding, as Natalie watched me with a kind of quiet guilt, like she'd seen too much, too late. This isn't just HOA harassment, I said slowly. This is targeted, and she said it out loud. Natalie nodded. She forgot I used to run the recorder on every meeting. It was a backup, in case anyone accused us of mismanaging documents. And now, it was evidence, not just of bias, of intent. I sent the file to Eli that night. He nearly choked. "This is it," he said. "This changes everything. We're not just fighting citations anymore. We're talking about a documented abuse of authority and possibly defamation, targeting, and prejudice." He filed a formal complaint with the HOA Oversight Committee, and for good measure, CC'd the city's Residential Affairs Board. Natalie, bless her heart, submitted a sworn statement, and within 5 days, the board had no choice. Karen was suspended indefinitely, pending full investigation, and a community vote was scheduled. The night of the vote, packed house. Neighbors who'd never shown their faces before came out in droves. Parents, retirees, young couples who'd stayed quiet for years. Marco played the audio. On a speaker in the middle of the room, every word, every ugly pause, every smug threat Karen thought no one would ever hear again. It was like watching the entire neighborhood exhale at once. For some people, it was the first time they realized they hadn't just imagined the pettiness, the fear, the sense of always walking on eggshells. And when the vote happened, it wasn't even close. Karen was removed from the board, stripped of title, barred from ever running. For HOA leadership again. Afterward, I walked home in the quiet. No fireworks. No champagne, just a cool breeze and a feeling I hadn't felt in months. Peace Scout trotted beside me like he knew something had shifted the next morning. I woke up to find 2 things on my porch. One was a card, unsigned, that simply said, "Thank you for fighting when we couldn't." The second, a roll of brand new, unopened mirror tint. Ben's handwriting was scribbled on the packaging. Looks like it's catching on. Weeks passed, then months. No more flyers. No more late-night violation letters. No more threats disguised. As policies, just neighbors being neighbors again. We still had rules, sure, but now we also had boundaries. And Karen? Well, every now and then, I see her walking the opposite direction when she spots. Meat still lives here, still clinging to the edges of control. But now, she sees her reflection in every tinted window on this block, and she knows this neighborhood isn't hers anymore.